The illustrious Jabba bids you welcome. I'm going to regret this.
I'm Pete Mitchell. He's Peyton Jones. And this is the Church Planter Podcast, brought to you by Church Planter Magazine. Hey, Church Planter, this is Pete Mitchell. Of course, right when we start...
And this is the Hanging Cement Board Podcast. Welcome to it. I'm Peyton Jones, and I'm actually hanging cement board with my feet right now. Very talented. Very good.
This is how you know we are nothing but a high-class, high-caliber podcast where we're 421 episodes in, and we got a dude sanding in the background.
Dude, I'm telling you, like I told him, I said during my exponential show, you have to go because that is a professional show.
Translation, I'm getting paid for that.
Yeah, I'm actually not. I don't get paid for that. I just do it.
Why?
It's fun. I suppose
would do
the same
it.
Reason I do this one.
I would do it if I could promote something that would bring people back over to me so I could then turn around.
I mean, they did include church plantology in this is like nuts. I'm be like, dude, come on, man. Knock it off. What are you doing?
You don't have your little feature on, do you? That muffles it.
I don't, because I want my silky voice and I want you to pick up every ounce of this in the background right now. So actually, church plantology is part of the exponential series. So whenever Zondervan has a book and they feel like, hey, we can actually put this thing down to if it's something that fits our ethos and this and that. Well, so I mean, in one sense, I mean they're promoting my book already, so that's great. But man, I will tell you this: Zondervan is putting a lot behind this book, and this may mean something to you because I think you listened to Church Zero on Audible, right?
No.
You didn't?
No.
You're actually in that book. See, this is why I didn't include you. It's not, but this gives me a great excuse to say this. This is why you're not in my second book. Because I named you. I named your company in the first book. I said good things about you. I totally lied. You didn't even listen to it.
Yeah, but see, I did read it, but no one else read it. That was the problem. I got no popularity for being mentioned because no one read your book.
That's not true. That book got a wide readership. They gave it away for free for 2 months.
Yeah, that's right? It. That's what did it for you.
It actually got a lot of readership. That book did okay on the readership part.
Okay. So, you keep telling yourself whatever you got to tell yourself.
It didn't make me any money. But
that's how you know it didn't go very well.
Hey, when you give a guy's, but they promoted that. But anyways, so any of you that listen to the Audible of Church Zero, the same guy who did the audiobook, which he was fantastic. He was a genius. He ended up getting the, I'm going to have to tell him, you got to cut that somewhere else. I know what he's doing. He's hung the cement board in the shower and he's cutting out the window. I know exactly what he's doing. I know this house now like the back of my hand, man. So I'm building my own house. It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah, you're not really building it yourself, though.
Oh, I'm a part of it. Trust me.
Oh no, I know. I remember you digging out the pipes and stuff. And...
I just did that again.
Did you?
So yeah, I did it around the back this time. So laying a gas pipe out there. So yeah.
Dude, guess what I did for the first time yesterday? Acupuncture.
Oh, how'd you like it?
I'm still in pain. So
it hurt?
No. I mean, I went because I was in pain. Like, I went.
I was gonna say if you're in pain after acupuncture, you might not have answered that Craigslist ad.
You just got somebody. Hey, I got some needles here. We'll just start poking these suckers. It'll work.
Some guy named Bart. I do your acupuncture.
He's got a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, and the ash is falling on your back while he's doing it.
So Bart, how'd you get into this? I listened to an acupuncture podcast.
I used to do tattoos. I had needles left over.
That's it. So, that's cool. So, acupuncture, huh?
I've been having all kinds of back pain since I started working out again. I don't know if it's like leftover from the surgery or just, 10 weeks off, but I mean like massive back pain.
Okay. So I promise you, I'm not sending you to anywhere that's the equivalent of the dark web in real life, but I have a guy. He is a Vietnamese guy. He's on Beach Boulevard. Don't judge. I always go there with Andrea. There's nothing seedy about it. There was a seedy one 2 doors down.
Massage therapist, I would have.
I'm telling you, this guy is a miracle worker. You need to go to him. And
what is he? Is he a massage therapist?
He is, and you got to go to him.
Ravi Zachariah just got.
I'm just saying. I always go there with Andrea. I'm just saying.
Is she in the room with you? Is she in the room with you?
Yes. I'm telling you, it's weird. It's
Did you see that Seinfeld where George is either with a chiropractor or a massage therapist? Do you remember that? I don't think
you're supposed to talk about that episode on this.
I'm not going to go any further than that.
Yes.
That's all.
Yes, I'm very aware of that.
That's so funny. Yeah, I'm not going to go see him.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just saying, if you want,
unless Andrea's going to come with me.
Hey, if you don't like a man putting his hands all over your body and rubbing your muscles, that's up to you. But I'm just saying, he's very good at what he does.
Is he?
Very good. Yeah. Except he does this thing where he grabs your ears and he goes like this, and then he goes, psh. And I'm like, oh, that dude's like trying to expel chi or something. I don't know what he's doing, but yeah.
You're like, I need all my chi. Give me back my chi.
Give me that back. I want a discount. You stole my chi.
Dude, so
this podcast's getting weird, man.
He did the needles on my back. He did the needles hooked up to electricity, right? So it's like shaking your muscles.
There's ratchet time.
And then he did the suction cup, right? Where like they stick the we can tell when you mute yourself because it goes from like,
I got to.
No, now it sounds weirder. Like before it was just regular background noise.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're used to it.
That's fine. Okay. That's what I'm going to do the whole time you talk when this thing, I'm going to go in the background.
So he does the suction cup thing, right? I mean, have you ever had that done?
No. And that freaks me out, actually.
Well, I got like 18 hickeys on my back now because they really do the suction cup thing. Like, pretty strong. That's
to stimulate the blood flow to your that part of your which theoretically it makes a lot of sense.
Well, acupuncture is like different than chiropractic in that they actually went through all the scientific studies and proved it, and that's the reason why insurance will cover acupuncture. And
well, here's the thing, right? Like this to me is fascinating. You guys remember I'm an RN, so the Western medicine is all based around the ABCs, right? Airway, breathing, circulation. So it's all based around the circulatory system. We hinge everything in the Western medicine on that. Now, Eastern medicism. Remember, I'm a professional, everybody. Eastern medicine. Eastern medicine bases everything on the central nervous system. So in what they would say is like, the whole idea of chi or whatever is not, I know it has a spiritual connotation because they believe that, hey, your spirit and your body interact with one another. Who knew, right? Like that's not biblical at all. But the whole thing is that they believe that kind of like a battery, like energy, if your circulatory system isn't going, you get pooled blood. If your central nervous system isn't flowing right, because it's electrical conduits and circuits, they would say that you get energy stored up in certain parts of your body like a battery, right? It's certain places where energy pools. So acupuncture is releasing that buildup, right? That's the whole idea of it. And yes, I do think that there's truth in it. Even to the point where they would say, like on acupuncture, they would even stimulate parts, like where they would say around your kidney. Like there was this thing I used to do. It was called Chinese yoga in Wales, but that's not the name for it. It's what the old Kung Fu masters do to strengthen their tendons. So when they're like 90 years old and they'll still kick your butt and they have no muscle mass, it's because they're tendons. So they do these ringing, twisting motions. It's not Tai Chi. Tai Chi is all about flow. This is about tension. And so I used to do this, and they call it needleless acupuncture. So it's a certain type of exercise where if you do it right and you twist things, it opens up the electrical conduits in the same way acupuncture would. And I'm telling you, I did this thing. There was nothing spiritual about it. The guy would explain it scientifically. He's going through, and there were times like you would start feeling the electricity buzzing through you. It was weird, man. And it was all your nerves. It's like when you hit your funny bone. It's all about manipulating. And he would say your muscles have grown up and they've occluded this. So this is the way you free all that up. It was amazing. If I could find a class on it today, I'd do it again.
Interesting.
So yeah, it was
he didn't
rad.
give me any of that energy talk because I asked him, I go, what do the needles do and the electricity do? And he's like, he was actually explaining to me the science behind it with like membranes getting stuck together and the needles breaking it up. And then the electricity is like shattering it more and spreading it out more from there. And I was like, all right, well, that makes sense. So you could be talking smack for all I know, but
the Eastern medicine is all about electricity. So they would say, think of it. If your nerves are what power your kidneys. So we always go, oh, you need more blood to the kidneys. They're like, no, you need more signals from the brain to the kidneys. Your kidneys, that signal is blocked. You're not getting enough energy to your kidney, enough electricity. So your electricity is functioning, or your kidney is functioning at 30% deficit right now. We need to stimulate that energy so your kidney's running 100%.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's a totally different paradigm, and yet scientifically it works.
Well, that's the reason why I was saying, like, at the time, and I mean, it's been a lot of years, but I remember chiropractic wouldn't do the scientific studies, which is why insurance companies hated chiropractors. But acupuncture was like, no, we'll do the scientific studies. We'll prove what we're saying. And they did. And that's why it's like, even the WHO like promotes acupuncture for several different conditions. And they're like, no, we got the studies that prove this stuff works. I would just been in so much pain. I'm like, I don't care what I got to try. I'll do anything. Right. But then fun news for me. The reason why I had to start the podcast a little bit earlier, donating blood today. First time.
Are you really?
I'm a first timer. I'm Pete. It's my first time.
Nice.
They're going to suck out some blood.
What kind of blood are you? You the rare kind? Like, can I sell you on the black market?
No, I don't think I'm rare. I did a do-it-yourself test at home, and it was my first A+ I've ever gotten in my life.
That's so rad. Did you like take it and put it on the refrigerator?
I did laminate it, and I got it stuck over there on the side of my desk.
You need to hang it on the refrigerator. A+.
I got an A+.
You need to train everyone in your household to go every time they get a glass of milk. Oh, we're so proud of you. I did that last night. My daughter actually wrote this rad paper on whales. And she got an A+ on it.
Nice.
And I was like, yeah,
How much of it does she remember? Because how old was she when she left?
Well, she lived there the first 2 years of her life, but her paper was my favorite vacation spot.
Oh, okay.
And so
back there.
She goes, I love the weather. It rains all the time, and the rain is cold on your skin. And it was fun. I'm like, is it? But then she's talking about how it's all toasty when you light the fire and you curl up with tea and cakes. And it's true.
Do you watch The Crown on Netflix?
It's my favorite freaking show.
Really?
I love it. Yeah. And, I used to be embarrassed. Like, I remember when it first came, funny enough, I've mentioned the couple that we would go to their house, and he's like one of the master craftsmen, grandfather clock restorers in the world, one of the top 3, probably the top. But yeah, they live out in this little country, like, 17th century farmhouse out in the middle of nowhere. And we'll go stay with them for like weeks. And they're some of our best friends on the planet. But the one night they lit the fire. It was in the winter. They're like, hey, just got to watch this. And they like, same thing. Whenever you're in Wales and you're going to do anything, food and drink are a big deal. So they got it all set up and they said, you just got to watch this show. We know you wouldn't, because it's about the Queen. And they're English, but if you live in Wales, you're not big fans of the Queen, right? Like they're not big royalists. So, anyways, so they put it on and I'm hooked. First episode, I'm hooked, which is weird because it's about the Queen. It is a masterpiece of a show. And I am so into it. It's my favorite show. Better than any
We just
show.
watched the episode that happened in Wales, with
There's two. There's two.
Oh, is there? Well, it's the one with the landslide that kills all the kids.
Aberfan. So when I moved there, it wasn't long that I got to Wales and Pete, I'm telling you, so this slag heap from strip mining, it literally rolled down a hill. The rain weakened the soil. It was a giant landslide that buried an entire school. And overnight, this whole village lost almost every kid in the community. Still to this day, if you're talking to somebody, like when I was a firefighter, I met older firefighters that would talk about it and they'd cry. Because I remember going there and like he said they were so desperate, like people were using whatever they had. Like the town was like, imagine the parents.
Yeah.
And that's when they'd start to cry. They'd be like, we'd be down there and the parents were like taking cooking sheets or whatever it was. And they were just trying, to get it out of there, like digging their kids out in the hopes that their kids are still alive. And it's terrible, dude. Terrible.
I know.
People still cry about it there when they talk about it. So,
yeah. And then, of course, the Queen can't cry. She's like, I dabbed a dry eye, and by some miracle, no one noticed it was dry. She's like, I'm broken. I thought that was funny.
Yep. And I remember I just listened to a book, an audiobook about Margaret Thatcher. And they mentioned that when she went there, she wept. And
see, I can't wait to see the episodes about Margaret Thatcher because that comes in season 4. And
so good.
We're like episode 3 of season 3. So
good. Gillian Anderson, is it Gillian from the X-Files?
She's Margaret Thatcher?
Oh my gosh, dude. It's amazing. Really? Transformation. Plays her so well.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. She should get an Emmy for that, dude. I mean, yeah, what a show. Oh my gosh.
I heard they had Hillary play Margaret Thatcher. That's amazing.
So have you seen the one where they send what's his face out there, Prince what's his name? Prince Charles? They send him out to Wales to study?
Yes.
So that was Aberystwyth, which was 40 minutes drive north of Lampeter, where I was. So when they're talking about, hey, when I tell you guys like the church,
he called it hell on earth.
Yeah. And Aberystwyth was a step up from Lampeter, let me tell you. But we were the university town 40 minutes south. And we were old. So Trinity St. David's was the name of the university where I was at. I had a little coffee shop right across the street. The church was running a coffee shop. My office was right over top. That's when I started doing student ministry. Things like, the discussion groups. I talk about that in church plantology. I accidentally planted a church there too. Didn't think of it as a church plant, but we ran this Sunday night thing that's where people started getting saved. And that was the precursor to what happened in the coffee shop. Mm. But what was interesting was, when you watch that episode of The Crown, you get the Welsh nationalistic vibe very strong. And like I said, Trinity St. David's outside of Oxford and Cambridge, it was the third university in the UK. So, but it because it was in Wales, it was put there for Welsh people to study divinity or ministry. It became kind of like this bastion of Welsh learning. There was the Bally University, which was further north in Aberystwyth. Aberystwyth held the National Library of Wales. So that's why it became an epicenter as well, probably the epicenter of Welsh nationalism at that time. But it weren't pretty where I was, you know what I'm saying? I've told people before that the church actually, the reason I won the vote when the church came to a vote, But the reason that I had to leave that church was over the Welsh language. The people, half my leadership team was so passionate about the Welsh language. They felt what we were doing on Sunday night in English language was threatening the Welsh work that was also on Sunday night, which they had said, hey, you could totally do it at the same time. But when mine started growing and Welsh speakers from the community started coming to it and getting saved instead of the Welsh meeting, that's why the church split. So when you watch that show, The Crown, and you're like, you see how important to them the language is. That's no joke. Like, I have personally experienced that. So
interesting, man.
Yeah. So, yeah. Oh, that's cool. You're watching that. I love that show.
We ran out of shows, man. Literally, we watched Dexter, and it was like, okay, now we need another show. The Crown.
Did I tell you one time I showed up to Refuge Long Beach to disciple someone over at during the week at the park? It was one of the homeless people, and they were filming Dexter there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's an episode where they filmed that. You could probably Google it. There's an episode of Dexter that was filmed at it's Bixby, right? Bixby Park.
Well, they filmed a lot in Long Beach. I mean, there's so many times I'm like, oh, I know where that is in Long Beach. Oh, I know where that is in Long Beach. Yeah.
Yeah. There's an episode filmed at Bixby Park, or at least part of it, at least. I asked the guys, hey, what's all the cops are there roping it off, the big catering tent. I'm like, what's going on? They're like, we're filming Dexter. So,
hey, what city do your kids go to school in?
Well, I'm not sure I'm comfortable saying that on the podcast.
The city that they go to school in?
Yeah. Well, we can talk after.
I was just going to say, are they full-time school?
Yes.
Is it like hybrid, or is it?
No, it's full-time.
Yeah.
But we have to, whenever we travel, we have to quarantine my kids for like 2 weeks. So that always sucks.
Yeah, we don't believe in quarantine.
I don't believe in all that.
We don't.
Virology stuff.
What was funny is I was talking to a church planter who shall remain unnamed, and he and his wife got COVID, and he goes, we still had to send our kids to school because there's no way we could get better with them here because we needed them gone. So they full on, even though they had COVID, they sent their kids to school. They're like, you got to go, you got to get out of the house for 6 hours or whatever.
Yeah. Sometimes I wonder why this is going to keep going until next Christmas. And then I don't. People are dumb. Man. That is and sorry, nameless church planter. I don't know who you are, but you seem dumb.
Hey, his kids didn't get it.
Well, and apparently they don't, right?
They were out of the house. So, who knows?
Hey, that's
apparently you can only catch COVID.
A good idea.
You can only catch COVID between 8 and 3. So if you get the kids out of the house between 8 and 3, you're safe.
Yes, or after 10 at night. Don't forget. 10 at night. If you live in California, it's more dangerous. 10 at night.
Does he still have that going on? The curfew?
I think he removed all that stuff when they went to recall him. So
yeah, he's not going to get recalled.
You don't think so?
No, because last time we did a recall, which is Gray Davis, we had an Arnold Schwarzenegger. We don't have an Arnold Schwarzenegger who could actually beat out a Democrat. So it's like, so what? If you did actually recall Newsom, you're just going to put another idiot in there, and it's literally not going to change if the guy actually gets out.
Right. Yeah.
You'd need someone who can actually win, and we don't have that.
No, we don't, do we? That's kind of a bummer.
Oh well.
Yeah. I've not been a fan. I guess just because everything's just running down so quickly in our state right now. I mean, it is really running down fast. That's the thing that scares me about what's happening in Washington, D.C. is so many people right now on Biden's cabinet are Californian governors. And you're like, dude, Californian, and you're like, do not make the rest of the country like California, please.
Oh, they're trying to.
Oh, my gosh.
We're
just such a wreck. We're just such a wreck. Why would you do that? So
because they still look at it and go, well, it's still the most prosperous state, so it must be good. Yep, they're all
Pete, I was going to say we haven't talked yet about the Rabbi Zacharias stuff that came out. I'm wondering if we were going to do today, our first question, I went on Facebook and got a whole host of new topics. And I was like, man, we should talk about those. But I kind of wondered, like, one was, hey, grooming a church planter from within, myth or legend. And I would love to talk about that. And that was going to be today's topic. But I kind of wondered, should we venture into the Rabbi Zacharias territory?
Sure.
Do you think that's something that should be addressed? What do we do with that?
Like, sexual immorality is always a great topic to talk about.
Well, I think it's important because it highlights something about ministry in itself, and maybe a misunderstanding that we have about ministry. In this country, should we head into it?
It's time for this week's topic.
Let's get down to the nitty gritty.
Wait, I forgot. Great Scott. It's time for this week's topic.
Great Scott. Yeah. Yes. Well, it highlights something. For those of you that know, and Pete and I think we talked about this ages ago. I don't like to come on and say, oh, this guy failed, and this is how he failed, and cast shade on people for their failings. I just don't like doing that. But I do think this one's worth talking about simply because of the gospel impact that Ravi had and the helpful resources he provided to so many who were also able to use a lot of what he said and did for gospel impact.
I think you need to set it up for anybody who doesn't know the story.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Well, I thought.
Or do you want me to? Okay.
Yeah,
well, I can.
You could set it up.
I just figure I don't want to talk this whole time. So Rabbi Zacharias, he's
a well-known apologist.
Yeah, I think he's originally from India, but he may be from Pakistan. I thought it was India, simply because Joseph.
Wow. Did you freeze up there? Did your internet cut out?
I know him.
You totally just cut out for like the last minute. As soon as you said Joseph, burp, you were gone.
Oh man, that's crazy.
I know.
I was supposed to say that, eh? So no, we had a guy in Refuge Long Beach where he would be like, "Do not trust him. I know he's big. I know he's famous." Yeah, and he said, "I know him."
Dude, you're breaking up. What is going on with your internet all of a sudden? As soon as we get into the topic, come on.
And they have a platform here. And he's like, I knew him. Don't trust him. And I'm like, oh, okay. So anyways, but I didn't listen to that, because everybody gets a fair shake, right? But it comes up later. You think, huh? But I remember once somebody that you respect and love and is in your church, and you get to know him, travel with him. I don't always agree with Joseph, and he doesn't always agree with me about stuff. So I take it with a grain of salt. But Rabbi Zacharias was greatly used, I would say, in an apologetic fashion to debate, and he went around to college campuses, universities. Now, over the last few years, there was something called Ravi Watch that was set up by an atheist, which was a website that started questioning the credentials that he claimed. He claimed to have credentials and university degrees and be a lecturer or a professor at such and such school, and he wasn't. None of it was true. And so this atheist that would go to his debates put up this thing saying, I checked out his background. His credentials aren't real. And then the accusations that started coming up, this woman contacted him and said, hey, I saw your site, ravywatch.com, and I have been trying to get heard on these sexual assault allegations, and nobody's taking me serious. And so she took him to court. I think it got settled. So I'm trying to remember my facts. If I'm wrong on this, I apologize. You can look
2017.
Yeah. And it was 2017. That I remember because I remember way back then reading this stuff going, how come nobody's talking about this? I was never a huge Ravi Zacharias. I've never read a book he's read or written, but I know that he had one. I did read this one. I read this one called The Cross and the Lotus Leaf, which was an imaginary conversation between Buddha and Jesus. And I actually found that really helpful. And so, but anyways, it turns out that now it's come to light that there were a lot of inappropriate. I guess he had a lot of back problems, so he went to acupuncture. No, I'm teasing. He went to massage therapist. He went massage therapist.
He didn't have Andrea go with him. That was the problem.
That was the problem. And he had like a couple of apartments in Bangkok and things like that, and a lot of accusations now coming. There's a number of women. It's something like 10 women now that have said, yeah. We just knew we wouldn't be heard or whatever. And even back in 2017, it got quickly buried under the rug, but his text messages and communications with this one woman had come out, and he was suicidal. And he was saying, this will destroy my ministry. It'll hurt millions of people. And I can't go on living if you go public with this. And I think there was a payout that went to her. And she was a married woman. He was having very inappropriate sharing pictures of genitals and suggestive. And I don't know if they ever slept together or not. I hate to bring this stuff up because it's not my place to share somebody else's secrets. But what it's turned into now is, not just consensual sex or consensual things. It is now turned, because the one woman who was married, it was consensual. And then she felt overcome with guilt and said, I have to go public with this. And that was their text back and forth. But since it's come up with sexual assault allegations, once they hired an investigator, it came up to, no, he's assaulted people as well in non-consensual encounters. And so, but back in 2017, when this came up, he said, I learned a lot. I guess he told his board, I learned a lot from this. I will be more careful. And I had an affair of the heart. It never went any further. And, but now it's come out with the investigation. His board got a lot of pushback back then, like, you're not taking this seriously enough. You need to invest. So they hired a third-party investigator, and it's since come out that even like the very next day after that, he was getting more nude photos from people and sending and receiving. And so there clearly was not any repentance. And like I said, now that things have come out that are public, it's been obvious that not only the credentials, but there's been a lot of deception, a lot of license, and the texts are very concerning, very disturbing. I deserve this for my faithfulness. He helped a woman out financially using funding from the ministry. And then you can read, there's a big Christianity Today article on all this. So all these things are concerning, and a lot of questions generated about the Billy Graham rule have come up. People of just Twitter, which is the cesspool of the internet, for people's opinions. It's been really controversial. Some people are saying this is why the Billy Graham rule should be in place. And they're like, well, he followed the Billy Graham rule apparently, but he set his life up. Billy Graham rule is that you can't ever be with someone of the opposite sex alone.
He was with the Queen alone. I'm just saying, I saw that episode.
No, that was Billy Graham.
I know.
Oh, you're talking. Oh, okay, yeah.
Billy Graham was with the Queen alone.
What? Scandalous. Wasn't that a rad episode?
Are you sure?
What?
It was all right. I didn't really like the actor who played Billy Graham, so
Oh, okay. That when she gets on her knees, though, in her room, like,
yeah.
Because she's dealing with unforgiveness.
Yeah, I remember that.
That's so powerful. Oh, my gosh.
So anyway. A gal from our church wrote all the history for the production company when they did that episode.
So when are we all getting together for dinner with that lady?
They moved.
Dang it.
Yeah. I think they're in Bakersfield now or something.
Dead to me. I'll go to Bakersfield. They have a Cracker Barrel there.
No one goes to Bakersfield.
If they got a Cracker Barrel, Peyton's getting in a car and driving out there. So, anyways, going into all this, I think, someone I saw on Facebook had raised a question. What do you do with the works of a disgraced leader or artist or producer of content, and they mentioned Michael Jackson. He said, I still have Michael Jackson albums. Do I throw those albums away, burn them? And, of course,
it's only because they're not good. Like Michael Jackson was never that good.
Yeah. It's funny. It's not my type of music, but
he could dance, but that's it.
Yeah. I don't know, man. That dude had so much freaking talent. It's not my kind of music at all. I couldn't listen to him, but I can recognize the crazy amount of talent that dude had.
Yeah.
But I do think it's something that we got to talk about. Everybody, because then people start saying, well, was he a Christian? Was he not a Christian? All those kinds of questions. I'm not prepared to answer that question. That's not whether or not he was a Christian. I can't answer that. All I know is I've been a pastor for a number of years, and I subscribe to the John Wesley theory of everything. That is the only thing you can ever hope to expect from people is to be disappointed. Right. I don't, there's nothing that shocks me for Christians anymore. I mean, Paul writes about the Corinthians where he says, one of you has his father's wife, and you boast about it, and he makes a point that, hey, there's judgment for this kind of stuff. He tells them to repent. But on one hand, Ravi Zacharias, I mean, there has been judgment for this. On earth alone, his name's been trashed. His ministry has been questioned. His legacy has been ruined. That sucks, right? You have people like Billy Graham that we look at and we think, man, we stand on that guy's shoulders in many ways now. But when you're disgraced, I mean, it only lasts for so long. I mean, any platform that you had has been taken, and your name goes from being famous to infamous. That is a type of judgment.
Yeah. And also, to me, I look at it and go, I was kind of surprised at his organization that they were willing to release everything. Like, they're like, we're not going to hide anything. We're not going to, whatever the investigative firm comes up with, we're going to actually give you their report. You can read it directly from them.
Well, because when the money stops flowing.
Right.
I will say
all of them are going to be out of work really quick.
Well, when the money has stopped flowing, the only way you ever see that is, I believe, when the money stops coming in. And I'm sure the money stopped coming in and they freaked out. There have been multiple.
Well, I don't know that. I don't know that at all. And I don't want to claim that about it. It could have just been, hey, they were trying to do the right thing, even if that meant they were going to lose their jobs over it.
Well, and I don't know that that's the case, but I would assume that is the case.
I can't assume it. I don't think it's right to assume it. I'm not going to throw them under the bus without knowing that story.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, the only thing you can ever hope to expect from people is to be disappointed. And my view of people is such that because one of the things that happened was they came under a lot of scrutiny for not dealing with it in 2017. I mean, I'm sorry, but if my board knew that I was texting a woman, number one, the last thing I'd ever hear was click, click, click. How do you reload this stupid thing? Right? Like from my wife, that would be the last thing I ever heard.
He calls me, Pete, how do I reload the gun?
I knew I should have been listening to your podcast, Pete. But the thing is that my wife would kill me, and I don't think we'd survive. Number two, my board would have no interest in keeping any ministry going. I mean, this is where I started off, and I didn't get a chance to really say it, but this to me is the weakness of Christian ministry is when we build a machine, when we build something that becomes this great platform, we feel we have to keep it going because of quote unquote, all of the good it does for Jesus.
Right.
And therefore the priorities start to get misplaced. And this can happen in your ministry. I think one of the things that I loved about church planning so much was I knew in my church plants, I was never going to get famous because of the type of ministry that I did. Now, I wrote a book. I started a podcast with you. Those things, I guess, gave me some platform and what have you. But I don't think I've ever been in love with my platform. anything like I'm on social media because I want to keep writing. I feel I have a message and want to speak it, but I don't need to be famous. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I just would like to write some more books. I love writing. It's part of who I am. And recently I was like, I think I probably shouldn't say this out loud, especially with a book on the way. But I was thinking to myself, I probably won't write any more church planting books in future. I feel like I've said a lot about it. But I think I'm going to just write stuff about the scripture. I'm on Through the Word. Now that they have a crazy platform. But one of the greatest things about it is I'm not one dude speaking in the middle of a crowd with thousands of people. It's more that I get to come alongside a stadium of people one at a time. They're not a crowd all at once, and I'm the center of attention. It's individuals all around the world listening to something that's a Bible commentary for 8 minutes a day. And there's a degree of obscurity. Like if you don't listen Through the Word, you don't know who the heck I am. You know what I'm saying? You don't know who Chris Langham is. And there's something about that that really resonates with me, that I can go back to that thing that I had when I was a missionary, where I can still have influence and impact, but I can embrace obscurity at the same time. Because personally, I'll tell you, Peyton Jones isn't wired for fame. I think that comes off when we're doing our stuff, that you and I are not doing all the stuff on this podcast we would do to get famous. There's a lot of things
I
we
wanted
could do.
to be the big fish in the church planting pond.
I know, Pete. I'm sorry that your dreams got shattered. But back to how we opened up this conversation. That whole thing about when that church, when I felt called to resign, I won the vote. I could stay. They were supposed to leave, and the Holy Spirit spoke to me and said, "You're done here." Right? Like that broke me, and there was a lot of things in my heart at that time. I did want to be the golden boy. I want to be the next Spurgeon. I want to be the next Lloyd Jones. It's funny. I never got over that breaking. I just recently have been thinking about putting my sermons online. But I've never put my sermons out there ever since, because there's a part of me like, I don't want to have what Mark Driscoll had. Like people, and maybe that's vain for me to even think that would be a thing. Like people like my preaching that much, but I got known in Wales, at least. I, for lack of a better term, I was somewhat famous in Wales for preaching, and I got invitations to go to conferences. I got invitations to preach all over. I could have just probably made a decent living being an itinerant preacher. And when I got broken, I was like, I'm done. That was a train wreck. It was foolish. It was stupid. And I think to a certain degree, what we have in Christianity is this thing where like, this guy must be so important because so many people listen to him. And when I look at Jesus looks at a crowd of 5,000 people and goes, I got to get rid of these people. Like it's so the opposite. He heals people knowing that this will cause this massive stir, and he commands them not to tell anybody about it. That's rad. You know what I'm saying? Because that's ministry. And I'm not saying if you have platform, like should Ravi have had a platform? Probably not. Like if your character is not, like if you know in your heart of heart, like I don't see how that doesn't freak you out. Like there's times where like Andrew and I will go through a rough time in our marriage, and we're in counseling anyway. So we're doing all this stuff we ought to be doing. But there's occasionally times I go, oh, we're doing really bad right now. Like, we're struggling through our marriage at this stage. I don't want to let people down. And that's always been a factor in ministry. You always know, like at any moment, your own character flaws could open up and just destroy everything. My buddy is a guy named Di Hankey, who's my best friend in Wales. He's fasting off Twitter right now for Lent, starting today. But he is, to me, one of the pure drops in an ocean of noise. His tweets bring a sense of Christ and the glory of God in a way that few people on Twitter do for me. But he's very much wired, very much cut from the same cloth. And one of the things, I'm losing my train of thought because Ricky's dropping stuff up the stairs. So can you hear him in the background?
Barely.
He's dropping stuff. So I know he's dropping cement board. So I'm like, stuff's expensive. So, anyway, and it cracks when it breaks, when it falls. But, anyways, what was I saying? Ravi, die.
His Twitters, his tweets,
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say, he was mentioning the Billy Graham rule, and he had this tweet last week that said, I posted on the let me actually read it real quick. Sorry. Didn't know I was going this way. We'll look it up because it's better if I read it. Because I put a response on there that I think was helpful. Okay. So he says, over the weekend, my timeline has been full of people ridiculing and railing against such boundaries. To be honest, it makes me really sad. Everyone has to, let me do the first one. In almost 20 years of marriage, by God's grace, I've never cheated on my wife and never been accused of unfaithfulness or inappropriate behavior. Now, keep in mind, Di is a guy who plants in some of the roughest, he and I found a New Breed network together. He plants in some of the roughest neighborhoods in Wales. And he started up a coffee shop that employs people from sex trafficking. I've interviewed him on Ministry Ninja. I can't remember. Do we post him on here?
I don't think so.
So, but he says part of that is due to ministry boundaries that I agreed on with my wife. Apparently, some call it the Billy Graham rule. Over the weekend, my timeline has been full of people ridiculing and railing against such boundaries. To be honest, it makes me really sad. Everyone has to make their own decisions before God, and I will take whatever people throw at me. My wife is secure, my marriage is happy, and no scandals, right? Like that says it all right there. But I came on there and said, I'm with you, brother. What people fail to understand is that it comes from being aware of your own brokenness that such boundaries are put in place. Like I've never sexually assaulted a woman, and I would definitely go to the mat to defend anyone being victimized. And I remember back then I would tell people, they bring up Ravi and I say, that there's some things like I wouldn't want to be that guy, but I say, and they'd be like, oh, no. And so I stopped saying it after a while, I never went publicly and said, hey, Ravi Zachariah, and, dragged him through the mud and tied him to the back of a chariot and, dragged him around. I'm torn talking on this, but I do think for the sake of victims, we do need to air this out and say, hey, this can't happen, guys. You can't do this, and you shouldn't be protected in ministry. No ministry is bigger than an individual who's been victimized. I don't care. Like, if I know what Jesus will be like, you know what? Thanks, Ravi. Appreciate what you did. But I don't need it. Right. How like Jesus said, how the Pharisees, they do this stuff, and he goes, they tithe their mint and cumin and all this. And he goes, I would have rather you had just acted justly in your life. Like when he's given the woe to the Pharisees, he says you should have neglected the former, or neglected the latter and done the former. I think really, he has shown thee, O man, what is good and what the Lord requires of you, to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Those three things, right? Like that's the heart of it. It doesn't matter what big ministry that you build. Jesus said, and I'm not applying this to Ravi. I don't, like I said, I'm not prepared to say where he stands before God. That's between him and God. But Jesus said, in the last day, many will come to me saying, Lord, Lord, did we not cast out demons and do miracles in your name? And Jesus says, depart from me, I never knew you. It doesn't matter what ministry we build. And I just think the church needs to get that through your head. If you are displaying the glory of Christ through a life that is submitted to God, filled with the Holy Spirit, you are doing far more than a dude who's filling stadiums, right? Or that power of one life is going to be huge, Yeah,
it was interesting. Ruben had posted a video of another apologist guy who I didn't know who he was. I think his name is David Wolf or something like that. Guy has an interesting story. Do you know who that guy is? Who I'm talking about?
No.
He's a diagnosed sociopath. And so like he's going through his own struggles of, look, I have no empathy for people. He's all, my wife is bawling her eyes out to me and I'm just staring at her. And one time she comes up to me and says, do you realize how hard it is for me to be bawling my eyes out, pouring my heart out, and just have this cold, dead stare staring back at me? And he goes, and I thought I was doing good because normally I would just turn around and walk away because why are you even crying? This is stupid.
That's so rad.
I'm like, dude, how do you be a diagnosed sociopath? And anyway, and he got saved in jail. But so Ruben posted his video, and I really got to tell you, it was a phenomenal video, really good, because a couple of things that he points out. One, he references Breaking Bad, so automatically he wins my heart right there. But he's like, if you look at the whole story of Breaking Bad, it started out with making one bad choice. And then it was like, well, another bad choice, and then another bad choice. And then, well, I got to do this. Now I got to do that. And if you look at it, that really is that story, right? At first, it's like, I got cancer. I'm going to die. I got to set my family up for life. And then it becomes, I got to kill all these people in prison at once, or my empire is going to come. Like, it was just one bad choice after another that finally got him to where he was at. And so he talks about some book that he read on willpower, and I thought it was really interesting. And the premise of the book was that basically you've got one tank of willpower, and oftentimes people will be using that for one other thing. And so like he brings up Martin Luther King Jr. And, he goes, imagine the willpower it takes to be marching with people spitting on you, throwing you in jail, beating you, whatever, and you're not reacting back to them. And then he's also got this history of affairs during this time. And it's like, okay, well, Satan's not getting you that way. But he knows your willpower tank is empty, and he goes after you another way that he can get you. And he points out the difference, though, is Martin Luther King Jr. was ashamed at what he had done. Ravi Zacharias, from everything we've seen, he wasn't ashamed at all. Right. He was like, I'm just going to cover this up.
He was entitled. I mean, the text where he goes, this is God's reward to me for a life of faithfulness to him and serving him. Like, that was one of his comments on these women that he pressured into sex for money.
And that 2017, he gets her to sign a non-disclosure. And as soon as it's signed, he comes out and says, she did all this bad stuff and she can't talk about it because she signed a non-disclosure.
Right.
I mean, he the hearts were not in the same place, right? As a Martin Luther King Jr. who was totally ashamed.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
And I think that's a key thing too, is because I'm like you, I'm like, I don't know how you could do ministry knowing you're doing that. Like, I would have so much shame. I would be like, I can't be a pastor. I can't be out there speaking. Look at what I'm doing. This is,
Yep.
But we get into those opinions and those mindsets of, well, look at all these people who look up to me. What's my church going to think when they find out this? What's my family going to think? I'm the pastor. My whole extended family knows I'm the pastor, and yet I've cheated, or I've done this, or I've done that, or I've done the next thing.
But it's so funny, man, because that's the thing. When you're a pastor, people tell you you're amazing. I mean, people tell you the opposite too. But
I don't think I've ever told you you're amazing. Just so we're clear on that.
It hurts sometimes, Pete.
Are you going to go cry about it? Because I'm just going to stare at you with a dead stare.
It's funny because people will. They'll be like, "Oh, dude, you're so amazing," and you got to know you're not. You're not amazing. You can't believe that crap. You're not amazing. That. Like Paul says, we put no confidence in the flesh. That's one of my favorite verses. And then another time he says, in my flesh dwells no good thing. On the Ministry Ninja podcast today, we were talking about reaching the unreached. I've got that section in the chapter on Jerusalem where I say, I hate people. And for pages, I go on and on about how the natural Peyton hates people and is a people hater and a non-people person. And I took great comfort that Paul was that way. I think Paul naturally hated people, was irritated by them, couldn't stand them. And then he goes, but the love of Christ compels me. Like this supernatural love of God comes through me. And I remember being with people that I think I would naturally have no concern or care for you. And right now my heart is breaking for you. And I'm like, that's the presence of the Holy Spirit. That's how ministry happens. Is Peyton Jones is not the dude. He's not the amazing one in this equation. I am not. And that is the secret to ministry. And I've always tried to be like really real about who I am. But I also strive for personal holiness, right? Fall way short of what I need to be. But to me, there's this idea that I always tell God, like, there's a couple things. A, I don't want to be gross and a pervert, right? Like the brain that changes itself will scare you off porn forever if you've never read that book. And it tells you about the effects of porn on the brain. But number two, I want to stay married. I want to honor and be faithful to my wife. Number three, I don't need to be in ministry. I never have needed to be in it. When Paul says, woe unto me if I don't preach a gospel, you guys, there was a point in my ministry where as gifted as I think God gifted me in evangelism, there's always been this thing like, God, I don't have to do this. I don't feel what Paul felt. Spurgeon tells me I should. I could go and for years I did do other jobs and I tried to get away from ministry. And to be honest, through the word has been amazing because I get to use my gift again for the first time in years now to preach. And we're getting ready to put this thing together that's going to be for this generation of people that are so far from God. We're putting together this cool thing for it. And I love that because I think we've got a medium that's going to help reach. So I'll get to use some of that, but God doesn't need me, right? I guess is what I'm saying. He doesn't need me. And I learned that a long time ago. And I realized at a certain point, I don't need ministry either. I am a servant. And servants aren't, if I say I'm in here because I must do this, or I stop being a servant. I'm a servant on call. When you need me, Lord, I'm here, but I don't think you need me. But if you bless me with being able to do this, I'll do it. But if you're addicted to porn, either get out of ministry. If you're sending texts, if you don't have, you're messing around with someone, get out now or get help. Like one of the two. You can't have if you think, oh, but the world needs this ministry. No, it doesn't. It doesn't need a ministry where somebody's behind the scenes doing the opposite of what they're saying. Like the world, trust me, the world doesn't need one of those. Not any more of those. And the world needs you. It doesn't matter to go work at Home Depot and love Jesus and be true to God and true to your wife and true to yourself. The world needs more people like that, to be honest. And that's my mic drop moment right there.
So while I'm working at Home Depot and now I've abandoned my church, who's going to help out with all the accounting and bookkeeping and payroll and everything?
Well, that's a good question, Pete. It's simplifychurch.com. Simplify Church.
Oh, simplifychurch.com.
SimplifyChurch.com, Pete. It's that simple. It's for the non-math pastor, and they will help you work through all of your accounting needs, and they'll help you find your 941s. Do you even know what a 941 is?
No, because I have simplifychurch.com.
Well, they'll handle all that, because trust me, when I had to audit the insurance for New Breed, I needed 941s, and I didn't know what they were. And Simplify Church not only knew what they were, they got them for me and delivered them to the insurance company. They do more than what's on the label, Pete. SimplifyChurch.com. Hey, and if I could give another commercial, it would be, I'm starting coaching. So if you want some coaching, it could be for your ministry, it could be for your personal life, it could be for writing, it could be for anything. I am starting coaching. The first session is going to be on March 5th, and it's $200 a month. Calls last an hour and a half, and you'll be in a group of anywhere from 2 to 8 people. I don't know why I'm literally arbitrarily picking that number, but you can join at ministryninja.com/coaching. And this is a first for me. I've never done this. So I've been in other people's coaching calls. I've appeared. I got trained by Bob Logan how to do these years ago. I helped Mac Lake with stuff, but I've never done it. And I'm kind of at a point right now where I'm like, I'm going to do this. And I think I'm going to enjoy it. So if you want to join it, that's my pitch. That's the worst pitch ever for coaching, right, Pete?
We'll work on it more.
All right. Thanks, brother. I appreciate that. See, I need you. That just shows it. I too need coaching. I too am a man under orders, said the centurion.
Cool. All right. Do our sign up because I got to go run over and give blood.
Yeah, buddy. All right. Go spill that A+ blood. All right. So this has been Peyton Jones and Pete Mitchell reminding you, if you want to reach the ones nobody's reaching, you need to go where nobody's going and do what nobody's doing.
Thanks for joining us for another weekly episode of the Church Planter Podcast with Pete Mitchell and Peyton Jones. We'd love to hear your comments on this episode of the Church Planter Podcast. Visit us online and let us know what you thought at churchplanterpodcast.com. If you subscribe to us via iTunes and have enjoyed the podcast, leave us a positive review. The more positive reviews we receive in iTunes, the more iTunes will promote us to other church planners who would benefit from this show. This podcast is brought to you by the Church Planter Magazine, which is available in the iTunes newsstand or online via churchplantermagazine.com.